The M107 rifle felt wrong the moment Colonel Nathaniel Bridger pressed it into her hands. He knew it was jammed, had known for 3 minutes, standing outside the shooting range at Fort Bragg, watching Lieutenant Kira Ashford walk across the dusty North Carolina compound with that same measured pace her mother once had, the same way Vivian used to move. Deliberate, controlled, like every step was calculated for wind resistance and ground stability. Bridger handed it to her anyway, half as a test, half because something in his 68-year-old gut told him this woman deserved the weight of what came next. What happened in the following 4 seconds would change everything. Kira Ashford was 28 years old, though she carried herself like someone who had already lived twice that long. 8 months ago, she had been naval intelligence, analyzing satellite imagery from a climate-controlled office in Virginia, drinking bad coffee and pretending the work mattered. Then the phone call came, the one that starts with, "We regret to inform you," and ends with your entire world collapsing into a single sentence. Your mother died in a training accident. Syria. Equipment failure. We're very sorry for your loss. She had quit naval intelligence the same week, re-enlisted as infantry. Nobody questions a soldier who wants to get closer to the fight, closer to the truth, closer to the ghost of the woman who taught her how to breathe. Now she stood in the September heat of Fort Bragg, feeling the eyes of 24 soldiers watching from the range perimeter. They knew who she was. Word travels fast on military bases, especially when it involves legends and the daughters who try to live up to them. Bridger studied her face as she approached. The resemblance was undeniable. Same sharp cheekbones, same gray-green eyes that seemed to catalog every detail in a 360-degree radius without appearing to move. Same hands that hung loose at her sides, but somehow suggested absolute readiness. Vivian's daughter. Christ. He held out the M107 without preamble. No greeting, no explanation. Just the rifle, 12 pounds of metal in memory, the bolt deliberately jammed at an angle that would take most soldiers 15 minutes to clear, if they could clear it at all. "Lieutenant," he said, "just that, nothing more." Kira took the weapon, her fingers wrapped around the stock with a familiarity that made Bridger's chest tighten. She didn't look at him, didn't ask why, just accepted the rifle like she accepted everything else in her life now, as another weight to carry, another test to pass, another step closer to understanding why her mother had died on a Syrian training range with a rifle that should never have failed. The soldiers watching went quiet in that particular way crowds go quiet when they sense they are witnessing something important. Something they will talk about later in hushed tones over drinks they are not supposed to have. Kira turned the M107 over once. Her eyes tracked the weapon's lines, the slight irregularity in the bolt position, the microscopic resistance in the charging handle. She did not need to see the jam to know it was there. The weight distribution told her everything. 4 seconds. Her right hand moved to the charging handle, pulled back with exact pressure. Her left hand rotated the bolt counterclockwise 30 degrees, while simultaneously applying upward force on the receiver. A movement so precise, so specific to this particular malfunction, that it could only come from one of 2 places: extensive training or genetic memory. The bolt clicked free, the jam cleared, the rifle was operational. She handed it back to Bridger without looking down. Without breaking eye contact, her face showed nothing, no triumph, no satisfaction, just the flat calm of someone who had expected exactly this outcome. Bridger stopped breathing. The soldiers on the perimeter erupted into whispers. One of them, a sergeant who had served 3 tours in Afghanistan, turned to his companion and said what everyone else was thinking. That was Phantom's technique. Nobody else clears a jam like that. Bridger found his voice. It came out rougher than he intended. "Who are you?" Kira's expression did not change, but something flickered in those gray-green eyes. Recognition, confirmation, the acknowledgement that this moment, this test, had been inevitable from the second she stepped onto Fort Bragg soil. You know exactly who I am, Colonel. You trained my mother 30 years ago. You gave me her rifle, the one she was holding when she died. So let's skip the theater and tell me why I'm really here." Bridger felt something crack open in his chest. Not quite pain, not quite relief, something closer to reckoning. "Come with me, Lieutenant. There are things you need to see." He turned and walked toward the administrative building without checking if she followed. He did not need to. Vivian's daughter would follow, not out of obedience, out of the same relentless need for truth that had gotten her mother killed. The classified archives room sat in the basement of Building 7, behind 3 locked doors in a biometric scanner that Bridger's handprint opened with a soft electronic click. The room smelled like old paper and secrets. Filing cabinets lined 3 walls, each one containing the compressed histories of soldiers whose service records could never be fully declassified. Bridger moved to the back corner, pulled open a drawer marked with years that predated Kira's birth. His weathered hands, still steady despite age and too much bourbon, extracted a file bound with a rubber band that had gone brittle with time. He placed it on the steel table between them. "Before you open that, you need to understand something. What you're about to see is classified at levels that technically don't exist. If you read this file, you become part of something you cannot walk away from. You will know things that will make you a target, things that will change how you see your mother, how you see the military, how you see me." Kira reached for the file without hesitation. "I became a target the day my mother died, Colonel, and I stopped caring about what changes 8 months ago." She opened the folder. The first thing she saw was a photograph. Her mother, at 23 years old, lying prone on a ridge somewhere that looked like Iraq or Afghanistan or any of the dozen desert countries where Americans died for reasons that shifted with every administration. Vivian's eye was pressed to a scope. Her finger rested alongside the trigger guard, not on the trigger. Professional. Patient. The expression on her face was one Kira had never seen in family photos. This was not the woman who made pancakes on Sunday mornings. This was something else entirely. Below the photograph, a number typed in block letters, 427, confirmed eliminations. Kira's hand did not shake, but she stopped breathing for a moment. 427, the highest recorded count in United States military history, a record that had never been officially acknowledged. A record that should have earned her mother a Medal of Honor and instead had earned her a classified file in a basement that smelled like decay. She turned the page. Mission reports, dozens of them. Fallujah, 2006. Targets eliminated, 19. Kandahar, 2008. Targets eliminated, 34. Baghdad, 2007. Targets eliminated, 41. The numbers climbed page after page, each one representing a human life ended by her mother's bullet, each one justified by coordinates and intelligence reports and the cold mathematics of war. "They called her Phantom," Bridger said quietly, "because enemy combatants would die and never know where the shot came from. She could calculate wind, distance, air density, and target movement in under 10 seconds. Faster than any computer system we had, faster than any sniper I ever trained, faster than me." Kira looked up from the file. "You trained her?" 1994, she was 20 years old, showed up to Fort Benning with test scores that suggested she should be flying jets or running operation centers. Instead, she wanted to be a sniper, said her father had taught her to shoot deer in Montana when she was 8, said she understood patience. Bridger pulled a chair away from the table and sat down heavily. The movement made him look every one of his 68 years. "I almost rejected her application, not because she was a woman, because she was too good, too natural. People that talented usually have demons they're trying to outshoot. I was right about the demons. Wrong to think I could protect her from them." Kira's fingers traced the mission reports. Her mother's handwriting appeared in the margins of some pages. Notes about wind speeds, corrections to official estimates of range, small notations that revealed a mind obsessed with precision. "Why is this classified? 427 confirmed kills. That's a record that should be public. She should have been decorated, celebrated. Politics. Bridger's voice carried decades of bitterness. The Pentagon decided that a woman holding the highest kill count complicated the narrative. Too many questions about why she was deployed so aggressively. Too many uncomfortable conversations about gender and violence and capability. So they buried her, gave her classified commendations and secret medals, and told her to be proud that she served her country in ways the country could never acknowledge. Kira closed the file, placed both hands flat on its surface. And she accepted that? Your mother understood sacrifice better than anyone I ever knew. She believed in the mission, believed that some things mattered more than recognition. She made peace with being a ghost. Until someone killed her. The words hung in the air between them like gun smoke. Bridger reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small evidence bag. Inside was a firing pin from an M107 rifle. The metal showed clear signs of deliberate filing, stress marks that could only come from intentional sabotage. This is from the rifle your mother was holding when she died. The official report called it equipment failure, catastrophic malfunction during a training exercise. The bolt came apart mid-fire. Shrapnel hit her in the throat. She bled out in 90 seconds. Kira took the evidence bag, held it up to the fluorescent light. The filing marks were obvious once you knew to look for them. Who did the forensic analysis? I did, unofficial. 8 months ago, I pulled every string I had left to get access to the weapon before it was destroyed. Took this pin and buried the evidence. Because the moment I saw those marks, I knew. Your mother was murdered. By who? Bridger stood and walked to the filing cabinet, pulled out another folder, this one much thinner. He opened it to reveal a single sheet of paper with a list of names. Phantom Protocol, established 1978 during the Cold War. Deep cover sniper program. 40 operators total over 3 decades. Identities classified, missions classified, deaths classified. Your mother was Phantom 39. I was Phantom 07. He pointed to the list. 9 names had red lines drawn through them. In the last 3 years, 9 Phantom operators have died. All ruled equipment failures or training accidents. All involving weapons that should never malfunction. I didn't see the pattern until your mother died. Then I started digging, and I found this. He pulled out a final document, a financial ledger, offshore account transactions, dates and amounts that corresponded with each of the 9 deaths. Someone is selling phantom identities to foreign intelligence services. Deep cover operators with no official records make perfect ghosts for hire. But first, the original operator has to be eliminated, made to look like an accident. 9 soldiers murdered. 9 families told lies. $2.3 million paid into an account I've traced back to a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. Kira's voice came out very quiet, very controlled. And you know who owns that company? Colonel Richard Webb, 58 years old, senior operations officer, access to classified personnel files, authority to approve training exercises and equipment requisitions. Your mother discovered the connection 12 hours before she died. She sent me a message. Bridger pulled out his phone, played an audio file. Kira heard her mother's voice for the first time in 8 months and felt something shatter inside her chest. Jack, if you're hearing this, something went wrong. I found the ledger. Webb is selling phantom identities. He killed Martinez and Sullivan because they discovered the transactions. I'm meeting him tonight to confront him with the evidence. If I don't make it, you need to protect Kira. Get her out of the service. She cannot know about Phantom Protocol. She cannot become a target. The evidence is buried at grid 34.0522 north, 78.8784 west. You'll know the spot. You trained me there. Tell her I loved her. Tell her I did this so other mothers' children could come home. Even if mine couldn't. Even if I couldn't. Protect her, Jack. Please. The recording ended. Kira sat perfectly still. The only sign of emotion was the white pressure marks where her fingers gripped the edge of the table. "You didn't protect me," she said finally. "You let me re-enlist. You brought me here. You gave me that jammed rifle as a test. Why?" Bridger met her eyes. His face looked carved from granite in regret. "Because I was a coward 8 months ago. Your mother sent me that message at 0300 hours. I was drunk. PTSD from Gulf War operations I can't talk about. Demons I couldn't outshoot. I didn't check my messages until 1100 hours the next morning. By then, she was already dead. By then, I had failed the best soldier I ever trained. The woman I loved like a daughter. Maybe more than that. I don't know anymore." He placed both hands on the table. They were shaking. "So I made a choice. I could protect you by keeping you ignorant, let you live your life never knowing your mother was murdered. Or I could honor Vivian by finishing what she started. But I couldn't do that alone. I'm 68 years old, retired, no authority, no resources, no credibility with the current command structure. I needed someone with Vivian's skills, her dedication, her genetic gift for reading weapons and wind and people. You needed me. I needed to know if you inherited what made your mother extraordinary. The jammed rifle was the test. Vivian developed that clearing technique in 2003 after a malfunction nearly got her killed in Fallujah. She taught it to exactly 2 people, me and one other operator who died in 2019. When you cleared that jam in 4 seconds using her exact method, I knew. Muscle memory, genetic predisposition, something she taught you without either of you realizing it. Kira stood, walked to the wall and stared at nothing for a long moment. "What's at the grid coordinates?" "The evidence your mother buried. Photos, financial records, audio recordings of her confrontation with Webb. Everything we need to prove he murdered 9 Phantom operators, including her. Everything we need to destroy his operation and expose Phantom protocol to congressional oversight." "Then let's go get it." "It's not that simple. Webb has been looking for that evidence for 8 months. He has resources, surveillance, loyal soldiers who don't ask questions. The moment we move toward those coordinates, we put a target on both our backs." Kira turned and looked at Bridger with eyes that were no longer her own. They were Vivian's eyes, Phantom's eyes, the eyes of someone who had already made peace with what came next. "Colonel Bridger, my mother was murdered because she chose truth over safety. She was erased from history because powerful men decided her story was inconvenient. For 8 months, I have been drowning in the noise of ordinary life, pretending her death meant something, pretending the words equipment failure could contain the scope of what was stolen from this world when she died. You want to know if I inherited her gift? I inherited more than you tested for. I inherited her refusal to accept comfortable lies. So here's what's going to happen. We are going to retrieve that evidence. We are going to expose Richard Webb. We are going to declassify Phantom Protocol and make sure every one of those 9 soldiers is honored the way my mother should have been. And if Webb wants to put a target on my back, fine, he can try. But I'm Vivian Ashford's daughter, and I clear jams in 4 seconds. Bridger looked at this woman who was 28 years old and carried herself like someone who had already died once and decided to come back angry. He saw Vivian in every line of her face, saw the same terrifying competence, the same willingness to pay costs that other people only talked about. He nodded once. Then we leave tonight. 0200 hours. The coordinates are 40 minutes outside base. Abandoned Cold War listening post. Your mother and I used it for training in the 90s. If she buried evidence anywhere, it would be there. Grid 34.0522 north, 78.8784 west. Memorize it. Kira had already memorized it. The abandoned Cold War listening post sat 43 minutes northeast of Fort Bragg. hidden in pine forests so dense that satellite imagery showed nothing but canopy. Kira had studied topographical maps for 3 hours before the midnight extraction, memorizing approach routes and exit strategies the way her mother had taught her to memorize wind patterns. Some skills lived in the blood. Colonel Bridger drove without headlights for the last 2 miles, navigating by moonlight and memory. Sergeant Liam Durant sat in the back seat, 32 years old and silent as a held breath, his hands methodically checking the wire equipment they would need if this operation went beyond simple retrieval. "Your mother and I trained here in 1997, Bridger said, bridge of silence, before the military decommissioned it. Concrete bunker buried 8 feet underground, perfect for teaching patience. We would lie in those bunkers for 14 hours straight, waiting, watching, learning that the hardest part of being a sniper is not the shot, it's everything that comes before." Kira watched the tree line. What did she learn fastest? Stillness. Most recruits fidget, adjust position. Your mother could go motionless for 6 hours without her heart rate climbing above 55 beats per minute, like she could convince her body it was already dead. The truck stopped. They had arrived. The listening post looked like every abandoned military installation Kira had ever seen. Concrete structures overtaken by vegetation, rust eating through chain-link fence. The particular desolation that comes when purpose dies and nature reclaims what humans tried to hold. Bridger led them to the eastern bunker. The entrance was hidden behind collapsed fencing and 20 years of pine needles. He pulled aside the debris with hands that remembered this place, this exact route, this specific training ground where he had taught Vivian Ashford to become a ghost. She buried it inside. Grid coordinates pointed here exactly. If she followed protocol, the cache will be waterproof, triple sealed, 3 feet down beneath the observation post flooring. They descended into darkness that smelled like concrete and earth, in the accumulated silence of decades. Durant activated a tactical flashlight. The beam cut through black air and illuminated a space designed for watching and waiting in the patient mathematics of long-range elimination. Kira felt something twist in her chest. Her mother had been here, had lain on this floor, had learned to become the weapon that would make 427 confirmed kills and die because she chose truth over survival. "Here," Bridger said, kneeling. His fingers traced patterns in the concrete dust. Disturbance in the sediment. 8 months old, she dug here. Durant unpacked the entrenching tool. They took turns excavating, slow, careful. At 2 feet down, the blade struck something solid, not concrete, not rock, metal. Waterproof case, military grade, triple sealed exactly as Bridger predicted. Kira pulled it from the earth with hands that did not shake. She placed it on the floor between them and looked at Bridger. The old soldier's face showed something beyond emotion. This was witnessing. This was communion with the dead. "Open it," he said quietly. "It's yours now. Your mother left this for you even if she didn't know it yet." The seals broke with sharp cracks that echoed in the bunker like gunshots. Inside, vacuum-sealed bags protected documents from moisture and time. Kira extracted them one by one. Spread them across the concrete floor like evidence at a crime scene. Photographs first. Colonel Richard Webb meeting with men in civilian clothes. Vosé Kira did not recognize, but body language she understood. Money changing hands. Documents exchanged. The universal grammar of betrayal captured in digital clarity. Financial ledger next. Handwritten in her mother's precise script. Dates, amounts, account numbers. 9 transactions over 3 years, each one corresponding to a phantom operator's death. $2.3 million total. Blood money calculated with accounting precision. Then the USB drive. Durant pulled out a laptop. They huddled around the screen as he loaded the audio files. Kira heard her mother's voice and felt the world narrow to this moment, this bunker, this evidence of how Vivian Ashford had died. The first recording was dated 8 months and 1 day ago. 0247 hours. Vivian's voice, steady and cold. Colonel Webb, I have the financial records. You sold Phantom 12, Phantom 24, and Phantom 31. They're dead because of you. Martinez discovered the transactions. Sullivan found the offshore accounts. You killed them both and made it look like equipment failure. Webb's voice, older and carrying the casual authority of 30 years in command. Captain Ashford, 427 confirmed eliminations. That's impressive, truly. But you're a ghost who doesn't officially exist. Your service record is classified. Your missions are classified. Even your Medal of Honor is classified. Who exactly will believe you? Colonel Bridger will. He trained half the Phantom operators. He has connections in congressional oversight. This ends, Richard. Tonight. You confess, or I take this evidence to. Bridger is a drunk, 60-year-old has-been with PTSD and a discipline record. You walk out of here threatening me, you're signing your daughter's death warrant. Kira Ashford, Naval Intelligence, age 27, currently stationed at Dam Neck, Virginia. I know where she lives. I know her routines. I know exactly how to make her death look like the kind of accident that happens to young officers who work too hard and sleep too little. Silence on the recording. 4 seconds. 5. Kira could hear her mother's breathing change. Could hear the exact moment calculations shifted to fear. You leave her out of this. Vivian's voice had gone very quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before violence or surrender. Then destroy the evidence. Right now, delete the files, burn the ledger, walk away. Your daughter stays safe. You stay alive. Everyone wins except the 9 ghosts who don't get justice. But ghosts don't need justice, Captain. They just need to stay buried. The sound of movement. Footsteps. Vivian leaving. Then Webb's voice speaking to someone else in the room. Follow her. She won't destroy the evidence. Too much integrity. Sabotage her rifle before the morning training exercise. File down the firing pin. Make it catastrophic. Training accident. Equipment failure. The usual story. The recording ended. Kira sat very still. Durant had gone pale. Bridger's hands were shaking badly enough that he had to grip his knees to steady them. There's a second file, Durant said quietly, dated 6 hours later, 0847 hours, the morning she died. Kira nodded once. Durant clicked play. This recording was different. Background noise, wind, the hollow echo of an outdoor rifle range, voices in the distance calling out safety protocols and target distances. Vivian's voice speaking into what must have been a phone or recorder hidden in her gear. Jack, if you're hearing this, something went wrong. I met with Webb. He threatened Kira. I'm going through with the training exercise anyway, because backing down means he wins. Means 9 soldiers stay unavenged. Means my daughter grows up never knowing her mother chose her safety over truth. I can't do that. I won't do that. The evidence is buried at our grid coordinates. You'll know where. You trained me there. Tell Kira I loved her. Tell her I did this so other mothers' children could come home. Even if mine couldn't. Even if I couldn't. Protect her, Jack, please. And finish this. Finish what The sound of a rifle firing. Not the clean crack of a successful shot. The wrong sound. The mechanical shriek of metal failing under pressure it was never designed to bear. Vivian's gasp, wet and surprised. Background voices shouting. Running footsteps. Someone screaming for a medic. Then nothing. Just wind and chaos, and the audio timestamp showing 90 seconds of recording after the catastrophic malfunction. 90 seconds of Vivian Ashford bleeding out from shrapnel wounds, while soldiers who did not know she was the best sniper in American history tried desperately to save her. The recording ended. Kira stood and walked to the far corner of the bunker, pressed her forehead against concrete that was cold enough to hurt. She did not make a sound, did not cry, did not rage, just stood there holding everything inside with the same discipline her mother had used to lie motionless for 14 hours while hunting men who deserved to die. Bridger's voice came from behind her, rough with decades of grief. I'm sorry. Christ, Kira, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. Her voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Someone harder. You didn't kill her. Webb did. And I'm going to make him confess to it. In front of witnesses. In front of cameras. In front of every person who needs to know that my mother was murdered for choosing integrity over survival. She turned around. Her face showed nothing but her eyes had changed. They looked exactly like Vivian's eyes in that photograph from the classified file. The eyes of someone who had already made peace with what came next. Tell me the plan. Every detail. No protection. No safety nets. Just the truth about how we finish this. Bridger pulled out a folder he had been carrying since Fort Bragg. Inside were documents marked with tomorrow's date and the Fort Bragg official seal. Advanced Marksmanship Demonstration. Tomorrow at 1400 hours. Webb is hosting for foreign military observers. Official purpose is showcasing American training superiority. Unofficial purpose is recruiting for his private contractor network. 12 elite snipers competing. Foreign buyers watching. Webb selects the top 3 performers for off-book opportunities that pay 6 figures and require flexible morality. You got me entered? Under a false identity, Lieutenant K. Ford. Transfer orders from Fort Benning dated 2 weeks ago. Durant forged the paperwork well enough to pass casual inspection. You compete, you win. Webb recruits you. Then we wire you and get him to confess. Kira studied the competition parameters. 800 meters, 2000 meters. Final round at 1850 meters. Nobody's made that shot in demonstration history. Your mother made 1847 meters in Kandahar, 2009, 40-knot wind, uphill angle. Target was a Taliban commander coordinating an attack on a medical convoy. 1 shot, confirmed elimination. It's still in her file as the longest successful combat shot by an American sniper. You want me to beat her record? I want you to prove you're Vivian Ashford's daughter. When Webb sees you make that shot, he'll recognize something. Maybe not consciously, but he'll know. And that's when he'll get careless. That's when you get the confession. Kira looked at the evidence spread across the bunker floor. Her mother's handwriting. Her mother's voice. Her mother's last 90 seconds compressed into an audio file that would play in Kira's head for the rest of her life. What if I miss? What if I can't make 1850? Bridger met her eyes with the steady gaze of someone who had trained shooters for 40 years and knew the difference between skill and destiny. You won't miss. I've watched you shoot. You have your mother's gift. The calculations happen faster than conscious thought. Wind reading, distance estimation, Coriolis effect. Your brain processes ballistics like other people process language. It's genetic. It's inherited. It's why I tested you with that jammed rifle. I needed to see if you had Vivian's instincts. You cleared that jam using a technique she developed after nearly dying from a malfunction. A technique she never formally taught anyone. You knew it anyway. Muscle memory or genetic predisposition, or something science doesn't have words for yet. You'll make the shot because you're her daughter, because some legacies live in the blood. Durant closed the laptop, began repacking the evidence with careful precision. Wire equipment is ready, audio and video, hidden in a button camera and lapel mic, broadcast range of 200 meters. I'll be in a vehicle outside the demonstration range with recording equipment. Everything Webb says will be documented, admissible in court, enough to convict. What's the exit strategy? Kira asked. After confession, I signal military police. They're standing by under orders from General Hartley. He's one of the few senior officers I trust. He served with me in '91, knows about Phantom Protocol. When he hears Webb confess to 9 murders, he'll move fast. Arrest, court-martial, full investigation. They gathered the evidence, resealed it. Durant would take it back to Fort Bragg and secure it in General Hartley's personal safe. Insurance in case the confrontation with Webb went wrong. in case Kira ended up like her mother, in case history repeated with a daughter's blood instead of a mother's. The drive back was silent. Kira watched the pine forest slide past in moonlit darkness and thought about 1,850 meters, about wind and distance and the mathematics of impossible shots, about her mother lying on a ridge in Kandahar, making calculations that turned human beings into numbers, and numbers into confirmed eliminations. 427 times Vivian Ashford had pulled a trigger and ended a life. 427 times she had made the choice that separates soldiers from civilians. The choice to kill with precision and purpose, and the cold certainty that this death would save other lives. And then she had died because she chose not to kill, chose not to destroy evidence, chose truth over safety, chose her daughter's future over her own survival. Kira understood now. Understood why Bridger had tested her with the jammed rifle, why he had shown her the classified file, why he had played those recordings in a bunker that smelled like her mother's ghost. This was inheritance, not money or property or the comfortable legacies people pass to children who never asked to carry them. This was the weight of unfinished business, the burden of justice delayed, the responsibility that comes with being someone's daughter when that someone died choosing you over everything else. They reached Fort Bragg at 03:42 hours. Durant disappeared with the evidence. Bridger walked Kira to her temporary quarters and stopped outside the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow you'll need every advantage, mental clarity, steady hands, heart rate control. Your mother used to meditate before major operations, said it helped quiet the noise between her ears. He handed her a small object wrapped in cloth. She unwrapped it. Inside was a challenge coin. One side showed the Phantom Protocol insignia, a ghost holding a rifle. The other side was engraved with coordinates in a single word: eliminate. Your mother carried this on every mission. I found it in her personal effects after she died. Webb's people missed it because they didn't know what they were looking for. It's yours now, for luck, for memory, for whatever you need it to be when you're lying behind that rifle tomorrow and calculating shots that your conscious mind says are impossible. Kira closed her fingers around the coin. It was warm from Bridger's hand, warm like something alive. Thank you, Colonel. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when Webb is in chains and your mother's name is on a Medal of Honor that the whole world can see. Thank me when Phantom Protocol is declassified and 9 murdered soldiers get the justice they died earning. Thank me when you're standing at Vivian's grave with proof that her sacrifice meant something. When Kira woke the next morning, the challenge coin was still warm in her hand. Outside, Fort Bragg prepared for the advanced marksmanship demonstration. 12 elite snipers, foreign military observers, Colonel Richard Webb hosting with the casual confidence of a man who had murdered 9 soldiers and believed he would never face consequences. He was wrong. But he would not know that until a 28-year-old woman made a shot that defied physics, improbability, and every assumption about what daughters inherit from mothers who die too young. The shooting range at Fort Bragg looked different at 1400 hours, with foreign military observers standing in climate-controlled viewing boxes and 12 elite snipers checking equipment with the methodical precision of people who understood that one mistake could define a career. Kira adjusted the cap lower over her eyes and became Lieutenant K. Ford. The transformation required nothing more than posture and silence. She kept her face angled down, avoided eye contact, moved with the efficient neutrality of someone competent enough to be here, but not distinctive enough to draw attention. Not yet. Not until the shot that would make Colonel Richard Webb notice. The other 11 competitors were exactly what she expected. Men between 25 and 40, hard bodies and harder eyes. The kind of soldiers who had volunteered for sniper training because they understood patience and isolation, and the particular satisfaction of solving problems from a distance, measured in meters, that turned human beings into geometry. 2 of them gave her the look. The one that said they were already calculating whether she belonged here or whether this was some diversity initiative that would embarrass everyone involved. She ignored them. Her mother had faced that look 427 times and answered it with confirmed eliminations that made the question irrelevant. Colonel Webb stood on the observation platform wearing dress uniform in the casual authority of someone who had spent 30 years in command. 58 years old, gray at the temples, posture that suggested he still believed in what the uniform represented, even as he sold classified operators to foreign intelligence services for $2.3 million. Kira studied him through peripheral vision, memorized the way he moved, the way his hands gestured when he spoke to the foreign observers. The particular confidence of a man who thought he had gotten away with murder 9 times and would continue getting away with it because ghosts stay buried and daughters never inherit their mother's wars. He was wrong about that, but he would learn. The range master called the first briefing. 12 shooters gathered around the tactical display showing target configurations and distance markers. 800 meters, 1,200 meters, final round at 1,850 meters. Each shooter would take one attempt at each distance. Top 3 scores advanced. Winner received commendation and consideration for advanced assignments that the rangemaster did not specify, but everyone understood meant private contractor opportunities with flexible morality and 6-figure compensation. Wind conditions are variable, the rangemaster said, pointing to meteorological data. 15 to 25 knots from the northeast. Temperature 72 degrees. Barometric pressure 30.1 inches. You will calculate your own corrections. No spotters. No coaching. This is individual assessment of skill and decision-making under observation. Kira filed the numbers automatically. Her brain processed atmospheric data the way other people processed language. 15 to 25 knots meant she would need to read the mirage patterns and vegetation movement to time shots during wind lulls. 72 degrees and 30.1 barometric pressure gave her air density calculations. The rest was mathematics and patience and genetic memory. The first round began at 14:30 hours, 800 meters, moving target. Each shooter had 60 seconds to acquire, calculate, and fire. Kira drew position number 7. She watched the first 6 shooters, 3 hits, 2 misses by less than 6 inches, 1 complete failure from a sergeant who rushed his calculations and missed by 3 feet. When her turn came, she approached the firing line with movements her mother had made 1,000 times. Prone position, rifle steady, cheek weld firm but not tense, breathing controlled, heart rate dropping from 70 beats per minute to 60 to 55 to the place where Vivian Ashford used to live when she was hunting men who deserved to die. The target moved, left to right. Kira's eye tracked movement while her brain calculated lead time. 4 seconds. Wind drift at this distance with current conditions would push the round 8 inches right. She adjusted, squeezed the trigger between heartbeats the way Bridger had taught her mother, and her mother had somehow taught her without either of them realizing it was happening. The rifle fired. The sound was clean, perfect. The recoil familiar as breathing. 3 seconds later, the spotter called it, hit, center mass. Kira stood, did not smile, did not celebrate, just cleared the weapon and moved off the line with the same efficient neutrality that made her forgettable. Not yet, not until 1850. Round 2 started at 15:20 hours after a 15-minute equipment check. 1,200 meters, stationary target through chain-link fence. The fence added complexity, bullet deflection, unpredictable trajectory changes if the round clipped wire. Kira had drawn position 3 this time. She watched 2 shooters miss. One hit the fence, one adjusted too much for the fence and missed left. Her turn. She studied the fence pattern through her scope, found the gap, the diamond-shaped opening where a bullet could pass without touching metal. Her mother had taught her this, or maybe genetic memory had taught her this. Or maybe some part of Vivian's ghost lived in her muscle tissue and guided her hands through solutions that conscious thought could not reach fast enough. She aimed for the gap, calculated wind drift, fired. The bullet passed through chain link without deflection, hit the target 6 inches right of center. Not perfect, but solid. Professional. The spotter confirmed. Hit. On the observation platform, Webb was watching now. Kira could feel his attention like pressure against her spine. She kept her face down, kept moving with forgettable efficiency. One more round, then 1850, then everything would change. The rangemaster called a 30-minute break before the final round. Kira found shade near the equipment trailers and drank water that tasted like copper and adrenaline. Her hands were steady, heart rate normal, but something deeper was shifting. Some recognition that this moment had been inevitable from the second her mother died. That genetic destiny and unfinished business had always been leading here. To this range, to this shot, to this confrontation with a man who thought ghosts stayed buried. Bridger appeared from the observation area, walked past her without acknowledgement, dropped a water bottle near her position. Inside the bottle, a note written on range paper. "You're in first place. Webb is asking about you. Wants to know your background. Durant has the wire ready. After the final shot, Webb will approach, accept his recruitment offer, get him to an isolated location, make him confess. We're ready." Kira crumpled the note, swallowed it. The paper dissolved like everything else that could not be allowed to exist after this operation ended. She thought about 1,850 meters, over a mile. 3-second bullet flight time. Variables that multiplied with distance until the mathematics became so complex that most shooters gave up and relied on instinct. But her mother had not relied on instinct. Vivian Ashford had calculated everything, had processed Coriolis effect in spin drift and atmospheric density faster than computers, had made 1,847 meters in Kandahar with 40-knot wind, and proved that some shots are possible when the shooter refuses to accept impossible. Kira needed 3 meters more. 3 meters to beat her mother's record. 3 meters to make Webb notice. 3 meters to prove that daughters inherit more than eye color and bone structure. They inherit purpose. The rangemaster called final round positions at 16:15 hours. All 12 shooters had advanced. Nobody had failed badly enough to be eliminated. But the 1850 round would separate competent from exceptional, would identify the shooters worth recruiting for operations that existed in legal gray zones and moral dead spaces. Kira drew position 11. She would shoot second to last, would watch 10 competitors attempt a distance that Fort Bragg demonstration history said was impossible, would learn from their failures and successes, and then make calculations that her conscious mind said defied physics. The first shooter missed by 12 feet. Wind estimation error. He had not accounted for the Coriolis effect at extreme range. The Earth rotates. Bullets travel. By the time a round crosses 1,850 meters, planetary motion matters. Most shooters never learn this, never needed to. 1,850 was theoretical, academic, the distance that separated snipers from legends. The second shooter hit low. Gravity calculation wrong. At this range, bullets dropped nearly 40 feet. He had estimated 35. 5 feet of error that made the difference between hit and miss. Third shooter got closer. 6 feet right. Good wind reading. Bad execution. Trigger jerk instead of squeeze. Small mistakes become large at distances measured in miles. 4th through 10th shooters produced similar results. Near misses. Respectable attempts. Nothing that suggested exceptional talent. Nothing that would make Webb pay attention. Then position 10 fired and somehow hit. Not center mass, not perfect, but contact. The spotter confirmed it with surprise in his voice. The crowd of observers murmured. Webb leaned forward. Kira was next. She walked to the firing line and became someone else. Not Lieutenant K. Ford, not Kira Ashford, Someone older, someone who had lain on ridges in Fallujah, in Kandahar, and made calculations that turned human beings into numbers. Someone who had died 8 months ago and somehow left enough of herself in genetic code that her daughter could access it when the moment required. Kira settled into prone position. The M107 was familiar as her own heartbeat. She pressed her cheek to the stock, found the target through her scope, 1,850 meters away, a silhouette that looked impossibly small, a target that physics said should be unreachable. She began calculating. Wind speed, currently 19 knots from northeast. Mirage patterns suggested gusts to 23 knots. She needed to wait for a lull. Shoot in the space between gusts where air movement dropped to 15 knots and gave her a chance. Temperature, 72 degrees. Air density, 0.995. Altitude effect minimal at Fort Bragg. Barometric pressure, stable. Distance, 1,850 meters. Bullet would travel approximately 3.1 seconds. Would drop 42 feet due to gravity. Would drift based on wind. Would curve slightly right due to Coriolis effect as Earth rotated beneath its flight path. Her mother had done this calculation in under 10 seconds. Kira gave herself 15. Not because she was slower, because she wanted to be certain. Because this shot would define everything that came after. She watched vegetation movement at the target zone, saw grass bend and release, bend and release. Rhythm of wind gusts, 20 seconds between peaks. She had a window. Heart rate 53 beats per minute, breathing shallow and controlled. Finger on trigger with pressure that did not quite break the sear. Waiting, watching, becoming the kind of patient that only snipers understand. The wind dropped. Grass went still. Window opening. Kira made micro adjustments. Elevation, windage. The calculations were complete. Everything after this was execution and genetic destiny and the question of whether she really was Vivian Ashford's daughter in all the ways that mattered. She squeezed the trigger between heartbeats. The rifle fired. The sound was enormous and distant at the same time. Recoil drove into her shoulder. She stayed on scope, watched the trace, watched the bullet arc across impossible distance. 3.2 seconds of silence, then the spotter's voice, loud enough for everyone to hear. Hit, repeat, hit, target center mass, 1,850 meters confirmed. The observation platform erupted. Foreign observers stood. American officers exchanged glances that suggested they had just witnessed something that would be discussed for years. Webb's face showed surprise that shifted rapidly to calculation, to recognition, to the particular interest that comes when valuable assets reveal themselves. Kira stood, cleared the weapon, walked off the line with the same efficient neutrality she had maintained all day. But inside, something was burning. She had done it, had made the shot her mother made, had proven that genetic memory was real, or genetic talent was real, or something beyond scientific understanding connected daughters to mothers who died too young. The 12th shooter missed badly, rushed the shot, tried too hard after watching Kira succeed. The competition was over. Kira had won. The range master called her forward for commendation. She kept her cap low, avoided looking directly at Webb, accepted the certificate with minimal acknowledgement, and tried to fade back into the crowd of competitors. Webb did not let her. Lieutenant Ford, his voice carried command authority and something else. Curiosity, recognition, the tone of someone who had just seen a ghost and wanted to confirm it was real. A moment of your time. Kira turned, met his eyes for the first time, watched his face process what he saw. The resemblance was there, undeniable once someone knew to look for it. Same bone structure as Vivian Ashford, same gray-green eyes, same hands that moved with economical precision. Webb's expression flickered, surprise, calculation, then careful neutrality. Impressive shooting, Lieutenant. Where did you train? Fort Benning, sir. Standard sniper course. Self-study after that. Self-study, Webb smiled. It did not reach his eyes. 1850 meters is not self-study achievement. That's genetic talent or exceptional instruction. Which is it? My mother taught me to shoot, sir, before she died. The words hung between them like gun smoke. Webb went very still. Your mother? And what was her name? Does it matter, sir? Humor me, Lieutenant. Kira met his eyes and said the words that would change everything. Captain Vivian Ashford. 427 confirmed eliminations. Phantom 39. Died 8 months ago in a training accident that you arranged because she discovered you were selling Phantom protocol identities to foreign intelligence services. Webb's face drained of color. His hand moved toward his sidearm. Stopped. Too many witnesses. Too many foreign observers. Too many cameras recording the demonstration for training purposes. You should not be here, he said quietly. You should not exist. My mother said the same thing about you in a recording she made 12 hours before you had her killed. I've listened to it 17 times. Want to hear it? Webb looked around, calculating. The observation platform was emptying. Foreign observers departing. Competitors dispersing. In 2 minutes, they would be isolated enough for a conversation that could not happen in public. Walk with me, Lieutenant. There are things we need to discuss. Privately, Durant's voice crackled in Kira's hidden earpiece. Too quiet for Webb to hear. Wire is active. Video and audio recording. Get him to the equipment shed. Isolated. Good acoustics for recording. MPs are standing by. Kira followed Webb away from the range, toward the equipment storage building at the perimeter. Isolated. Private. The kind of place where conversations happen that could not be officially acknowledged. Webb waited until they were inside, closed the door, turned to face her with eyes that had gone cold and calculating. You have your mother's arrogance. She thought she could expose me too, thought integrity mattered more than survival. How did that work out for her? She died protecting me. You threatened my life. She chose to walk away rather than risk your retaliation. But she left evidence. Financial records, audio recordings, photos of you meeting with foreign contacts. Everything needed to prove you murdered 9 Phantom Protocol operators, including her. Webb laughed. Actually laughed. And what do you think happens if you take that evidence public? Phantom Protocol is classified. Vivian Ashford's service record is classified. You're talking about exposing black operations that 3 presidential administrations have kept buried. The moment you try, you'll be arrested for unauthorized disclosure of classified material, court-martialed, imprisoned. Your mother's legacy will be erased along with yours. Unless I have someone with authority willing to declassify it, someone who served with Phantom 07, someone who trained half the operators, including my mother. Webb's eyes narrowed. Bridger, that drunk has-been put you up to this. Colonel Bridger gave me a choice. Let my mother's murder go unavenged or finish what she started. I chose her legacy over my safety, just like she chose my safety over her legacy. Difference is, I'm not alone. I have evidence. I have witnesses. I have recording equipment documenting this conversation. And I have 1,850 meters of proven capability that says I'm Vivian Ashford's daughter in every way that matters. Webb pulled his sidearm, pointed it at Kira's chest. His hand was steady, no tremor. 30 years of service meant 30 years of weapons discipline. You're wired, which means this conversation is being recorded, which means I need to make a choice. Kill you now and claim self-defense, or let you expose me and spend the rest of my life in military prison for treason and murder. Durant's voice in her ear. MP's moving. 30 seconds. Keep him talking. Kira did not look at the gun, looked at Webb's eyes, saw what her mother must have seen 8 months ago. A man who had convinced himself that betrayal was pragmatism, that selling soldiers was business, that 9 murders were acceptable collateral damage in the pursuit of wealth. You're not going to shoot me, Colonel. Too many witnesses saw us walk in here together. Too many cameras recorded you isolating me. The moment I don't walk out, you become the primary suspect. You're already calculating whether you can make it look like an accident. But you can't. Not this time. Not with Bridger watching. Not with MPs positioned outside. Not with congressional oversight already briefed on phantom protocol and waiting for evidence to justify declassification. Webb's gun hand wavered slightly. You're bluffing. Am I? Let me tell you what happens next. You confess, on record, to all 9 murders, to selling phantom identities, to sabotaging my mother's rifle and watching her bleed out for 90 seconds because she chose truth over silence. You confess and face court-martial, or you shoot me and face murder charges on top of treason charges. Either way, phantom protocol gets exposed. Either way, my mother's 427 confirmed eliminations become public record. Either way, you lose. The equipment shed door burst open. 6 military police officers led by a 2-star General Kira recognized from Bridger's briefing files. General Marcus Hartley, 65 years old, Gulf War veteran, one of the few senior officers who still believed honor meant something. Colonel Webb, Hartley said, voice carrying parade ground authority, lower your weapon. You are under arrest for the murder of 9 phantom protocol operators, conspiracy to commit treason, and the sale of classified information to foreign intelligence services. Anything you say will be used against you in court-martial proceedings. Webb did not lower the gun, kept it trained on Kira's chest. His face showed the calculation of a man with nothing left to lose. You can't prove anything. Phantom protocol is classified. My word against the word of a drunk and a daughter with revenge fantasies. Kira pulled the small recording device from her collar, held it up so Webb could see the red light indicating active recording. Your confession is already documented, Colonel. Every word from the moment we entered this building, audio and video. You admitted to murdering my mother, admitted to selling phantom identities, admitted to threatening my life. It's over. Webb's gun hand dropped. Not surrender, defeat. The recognition that some games end badly no matter how carefully you play them. The MPs moved in, disarmed him, restrained him, read him rights that he probably knew better than the young soldiers reciting them. Webb's face showed nothing now, just the flat acceptance of someone who had gambled everything and lost. As they led him away, he looked back at Kira one last time. Your mother was the best sniper I ever saw. 427 confirmed eliminations. She could have made millions in the private sector. Could have used that talent for something other than patriotic poverty. She chose wrong. Just like you're choosing wrong. Just like every idealistic fool who thinks integrity matters more than survival. Kira met his eyes with the same cold calm her mother had shown in every photograph from the classified file. My mother made 427 eliminations protecting people like you. People who didn't deserve her sacrifice. People who betrayed everything she fought for. She died because you threatened me, because she loved me more than she loved justice. I'm finishing what she started not because of integrity, because daughters don't let their mother's murders go unavenged, because genetic memory is real. And I inherited her refusal to accept that evil wins when good people stay silent. Because I made an 1850 shot today that proved I'm Vivian Ashford's daughter. And because you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison, knowing that the ghost you tried to bury came back through her daughter and destroyed you. Webb said nothing. Just let the MPs lead him away. Into a future measured in court-martial proceedings, in military prison, and the particular hell of being the kind of traitor that soldiers learn to hate more than enemy combatants. General Hartley approached Kira after Webb disappeared into the MP vehicle. The general's face showed something between respect and wariness. Lieutenant Ashford, Colonel Bridger briefed me on phantom protocol and your mother's murder. I've authorized full declassification. Congressional oversight will begin next week. Your mother's service record will be made public. Her 427 confirmed eliminations will be officially acknowledged, and she will be awarded the Medal of Honor she earned a decade ago. Posthumously? No. The medal will be awarded to Captain Vivian Ashford, present tense. The military does not recognize death as ending service when that service was this exceptional. Your mother will receive full honors, public ceremony, her name in the record books, the recognition she died without receiving. Kira felt something break open in her chest. Not quite relief, not quite grief, something closer to completion. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, Lieutenant. Thank Colonel Bridger. He's been fighting for your mother's recognition for 8 months. He's the one who arranged this operation, who convinced me to hold MPS in reserve, who orchestrated Webb's exposure. You made the shot. You got the confession, but Bridger built the framework that made it possible. Kira found Bridger an hour later at the memorial wall, where names of fallen soldiers stretched across black granite in alphabetical order. He stood in front of one name, Captain Vivian Ashford, 1974 to 2026. Kira approached without speaking, stood beside him, two people who had loved the same soldier in different ways and failed to protect her in ways they would carry forever. You got him, Bridger said quietly. Webb confessed. Phantom protocol is being declassified. Your mother's record will be public. Everything she earned will be acknowledged. We got him. You planned this. You tested me. You gave me the jammed rifle knowing I would clear it, knowing I would want answers, knowing I would finish what she started. I gave you a choice. You chose your mother's legacy over your safety, just like she chose your safety over her legacy. Some things run in families: stubbornness, integrity, the refusal to let evil win without a fight. Bridger pulled something from his jacket, 2 medals in presentation cases. He opened them. Medal of Honor, 2 of them. One engraved Captain Vivian Ashford, 427 confirmed eliminations, 1994 to 2014. The other engraved Lieutenant Kira Ashford, exposure of phantom protocol corruption, honoring service above self. General Hartley authorized both. Your mother's for 20 years of classified service. Yours for exposing the conspiracy that killed 9 operators. They'll be presented in a public ceremony next month. Your mother's name will be spoken, her service acknowledged, the record set straight. Kira took her mother's medal, held it carefully. The medal was heavy, real. A physical object that represented 427 human lives, ended by bullets fired from distances measured in meters and mathematics. 427 calculations that separated her mother from ordinary soldiers. 427 shots that should have made Vivian Ashford a legend and instead made her a ghost. Until now. She would want you to have hers, Kira said, holding the medal toward Bridger. You trained her. You loved her. You've been visiting her grave every week for 8 months. You arranged this entire operation to give her justice. You deserve this more than me. Bridger shook his head. His eyes were wet. 68 years old and crying for the first time since Vivian died. No, this belongs with her daughter, the woman who made an 1850 shot to honor her mother's 1847. The woman who inherited Vivian's talent and used it to finish what Vivian started. Keep it. Place it on her grave. Tell her we got Webb. Tell her Phantom Protocol is exposed. Tell her 9 soldiers are getting the justice they died earning. Tell her everything she sacrificed meant something. The ceremony happened 3 weeks later. Public, broadcast, attended by military brass and congressional representatives and families of the 9 murdered Phantom Protocol operators who finally had answers about why their loved ones died. Kira stood on the platform wearing dress uniform and carrying both medals. General Hartley spoke about classified service and ultimate sacrifice and the courage it takes to choose truth over comfort. About operators who became ghosts so that other soldiers could serve in the light. About a woman who made 427 confirmed eliminations and died because she refused to destroy evidence that would expose corruption. Then Kira spoke, not from prepared remarks, from the place where genetic memory and lived experience and 8 months of grief compressed into words. My mother was Captain Vivian Ashford, Phantom 39. 427 confirmed eliminations in service of a country that classified her existence and buried her achievements. She died 8 months ago because Colonel Richard Webb murdered her for discovering that he was selling phantom protocol identities to foreign intelligence. She died protecting me. She died choosing her daughter's safety over her own legacy. And for 8 months, I have been drowning in the injustice of a world that erased her sacrifice. Kira held up the medals. These are not mine, not really. My mother earned this recognition every time she pulled a trigger and ended a threat to American lives. Every time she lay motionless for 14 hours, waiting for the shot that would save soldiers who would never know her name. Every time she calculated wind and distance and made impossible shots possible through talent and training and genetic gifts that I inherited along with her unfinished war. She placed Vivian's medal on the memorial podium. I made one shot that mattered, 1,850 meters, 3 meters farther than my mother's record. I made it to honor her, to prove I was her daughter, to get close enough to Webb that he would confess to her murder. That shot exposed Phantom Protocol. That shot brought justice for 9 murdered operators. That shot made my mother visible. Kira's voice broke slightly. She steadied it. But the most important shot I took was the one I didn't fire. The moment I chose to get Webb's confession instead of putting a bullet in him. The moment I chose justice over vengeance. That's what my mother taught me. That's what separates snipers from soldiers. Knowing when not to pull the trigger. Knowing that some things matter more than the satisfaction of elimination. Knowing that 427 confirmed kills mean nothing if you lose the integrity that made those kills justified. She looked at Bridger in the audience, at General Hartley on the platform, at the families of murdered phantom operators who had waited years for answers. My mother is dead, but her legacy lives, in declassified records that will teach future generations about sacrifice, in this Medal of Honor that finally acknowledges her service, in 9 families who have answers, in a corrupt officer facing life imprisonment, and in me, her daughter, who inherited her talent and her stubbornness and her refusal to let evil win without a fight. Kira placed her own medal beside her mother's. These belong together, mother and daughter, Phantom 39 and the woman who made Phantom 39 visible. Some legacies run in families. Some shots get inherited. Some wars don't end until daughters finish what mothers started. This is finished now. Justice is served. The record is corrected. And Vivian Ashford is finally recognized as the legend she always was. The ceremony ended with full military honors. 21 gun salute. Taps played by a bugler who made the notes sound like grief compressed into music. Flags folded and presented to Kira with words about grateful nations and ultimate sacrifice. Afterwards, she went to her mother's grave alone, placed both medals on the headstone, sat in grass that needed mowing, and talked to stone that could not answer. I did it, Mom. Webb is in prison for life. Phantom Protocol is public. Your 427 eliminations are in the history books. Everyone knows your name now. Everyone knows what you sacrificed. And I'm going to teach the next generation. Going to make sure they understand that being a sniper means more than making impossible shots. It means knowing when not to shoot. It means choosing integrity over easy victories. It means being you. Wind moved through the cemetery, carried the smell of cut grass and distant rain. Kira closed her eyes and tried to feel her mother's presence, tried to access whatever genetic connection had let her clear that jammed rifle, tried to believe that somewhere beyond stone and earth, In the mathematics of decomposition, Vivian Ashford knew that her daughter had finished the war she started. A voice behind her. She would be proud. Kira turned. Bridger stood at a respectful distance, 68 years old and carrying 40 years of soldiers he had trained. You think so? I know so. Vivian always said the hardest part of being a sniper is living with the shots you take. 427 times she pulled a trigger. 427 times she carried the weight of ending a life. She did it because she believed those deaths saved other lives, believed her sacrifice meant something. You proved her right. You finished what she started. You made her visible. That's what she would want. That's what matters. Kira stood, brushed grass from her uniform. I start teaching tomorrow. 8 recruits. What do I tell them first? Bridger smiled. The expression made him look younger, less haunted. Tell them about your mother. Tell them about 427 confirmed eliminations made by a woman who became a ghost so other soldiers could serve in the light. Tell them about the shot you made at 1850 to honor her record. And tell them about the shot you didn't take. The one where you chose justice over vengeance. That's what separates snipers from soldiers. That's what your mother knew. That's what you inherited. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Welcome to the legacy, Lieutenant Ashford. Your mother built it. You honored it. Now you get to pass it on to soldiers who will carry it into futures neither of you will see. That's how legends work. They don't die. They just change forms. Vivian Ashford was Phantom 39. You're her daughter. And those 8 recruits tomorrow will be the next generation of operators who understand that some shots matter more than others. That some wars are worth fighting even when you don't survive them. That some mothers leave inheritances measured in confirmed eliminations and genetic memory, and daughters who refuse to let their mothers stay buried. The next morning, she stood in front of 8 recruits at Fort Bragg shooting range and began the way her mother would have wanted. My name is Lieutenant Kira Ashford. My mother was Captain Vivian Ashford, Phantom 39, 427 confirmed eliminations, the best sniper in American history. She was murdered 8 months ago for exposing corruption. She died choosing integrity over survival. And I'm going to teach you everything she taught me. Not just how to make impossible shots, but when to make them. And more importantly, when not to. Because that's what separates snipers from soldiers. That's what makes legends. That's what my mother knew, and that's what you're going to learn. The recruits listened with the attention of people who understood they were receiving something rare. Something earned through sacrifice and genetic inheritance, and daughters who finish wars their mothers started. Kira picked up an M107, the same rifle her mother carried, the same rifle that had been sabotaged, the same rifle Kira had cleared in 4 seconds when Bridger tested her 8 months ago. This weapon can kill at distances over 2,000 meters, can end a life from a mile away, can make you powerful and dangerous and feared. But power without purpose is just violence. Danger without discipline is just murder. Fear without respect is just bullying. My mother understood that. She made 427 eliminations, and every single one was justified. Every single one saved lives. Every single one mattered. That's what I'm teaching you. Not how to kill with purpose, with discipline, with the understanding that every trigger pull has consequences that you'll carry forever. She handed the rifle to the first recruit, a young woman with steady hands and eyes that suggested she already understood patience. What's your name? Private Amanda Blackwell, ma'am. Kira nodded, saw something of her mother in this recruit's stance, saw the beginning of a legacy that would continue long after both of them were gone. The training began. Kira taught wind reading and ballistics calculation and the mathematics of impossible shots, taught patience and stillness and the ability to lie motionless for hours while the world continued around you, taught everything Vivian Ashford had taught her through genetic memory and deliberate instruction, and the particular inheritance that comes from being a legend's daughter. And every day, before training started, Kira visited her mother's grave, placed a single round next to the medals. 427 rounds over 427 days until the debt was paid and the honor was complete and genetic memory could finally rest. Some legacies run in families. Some shots get inherited. Some wars don't end until daughters finish what mothers started. Kira Ashford had finished it, had made the shot, had gotten the confession, had brought justice to 9 murdered operators and 1 mother who died choosing her daughter over everything else. The rifle felt right now when she picked it up. No longer a test, no longer a burden, just a tool for teaching the next generation that some things matter more than confirmed eliminations, that integrity counts more than body counts, that the best shot is sometimes the one you don't take. Vivian Ashford had known that, had taught it through genetic code and deliberate sacrifice, and a death that made her daughter into exactly the kind of soldier the world needed. Ghost and daughter, Phantom 39 and the woman who made Phantom 39 visible. 427 confirmed eliminations, 1 1850 shot, 1 confession, 1 Medal of Honor earned decades late, and 1 legacy that would continue through recruits who learned from Kira, who learned from Vivian, who learned from Bridger, who learned from soldiers whose names were lost to classified operations and institutional memory. That's how legends work. They don't die, they just change forms. And Vivian Ashford's legend had finally found the form it deserved. Visible, honored, complete.